universities to play a vital role in achieving the UN SDGs. Today, we have with us as a panelist Dr. Prasoom Dwivedi, a seasoned academic and a researcher in energy, economics, and sustainability. He's currently a professor and head at the Symbiosis International University. With over 20 years of experience, he has mobilized significant research funding and developed global academic collaborations while leading impactful projects and research initiatives. Second, we have with us on the board Dr. Tanushri Sharma, ma'am, a distinguished academic leader and HR expert. She is currently the executive director of the Center for Learning and Innovative Pedagogy at OP Jindal University. With over 20 years of experience, ma'am has specialized in faculty development, teaching methodologies, and HR strategies across diverse industries. Then we have with us Dr. Surendra Raj Purohit, sir, an accomplished professional with expertise in management, education, and banking, currently serving as an associate professor at Modi University of Science and Technology. He brings over 2 decades of experience across academia and industry. We have with us Professor Anirban Sen Gupta as the moderator for the chat show. Thank you all for sparing your time and being with us today. We can formally start the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shavita. And thanks to all the panelists for being here with us for this fireside chat today. When I was actually looking forward to our this fireside chat, and I was looking at something which is very pertinent for the academic world, and also possibly something where the corporate world or the social sector also might be having a significant interest in really understanding what is happening out there in the academic world. I think this was one topic which actually came up as a very relevant and pertinent topic, because SDGs, which we all know, the Sustainable Development Goals, where in the last 10 years, so the decade for action, as we keep on saying, has already started from 2020, and we just have 10 years. And with 2025 being just about 10 days away, it was actually a very kind of a very significant moment, I think it is, for us to take stock of where we are at the halfway mark. And without getting into the nitty-gritties, I think it is obviously very clear that we are way ahead. I mean, we are way away from achieving, what we wanted to achieve in terms of the SDGs. There might be 1 or 2 areas where we are doing very well, not only India as a country, but globally. But I think across all the SDGs, if we see, obviously there is a long way to go. And at Sustrat, we always believe that for achievement of this SDGs, sustainability, ESG, having the right talent in place is one of the key issues or key challenges, which means developing the right talent pipeline is possibly one of the key challenges. And that's why we at Sustrat are here. Keep combining all the things, it was coming to my mind that in terms of the nations, in terms of our nation, India as a country, achieving the SDGs, do the institutes of higher education, the Indian university systems, do we need to do much more than we have achieved so far? Or have we actually done a lot? In that context, I was looking at the Times Higher Education Impact Ranking, the ranking which has recently come out some time back for the year 2024. They have studied more than 2,100 odd higher education institutions across the world, at least 125 countries of the world spread over. And apparently, the Indian institutions have done very well in the sense that they are the most represented academic institutions from any country in that list, almost 96 of them. And it seems that most of them have actually come out very strongly. So while that is a great news for us, the challenge for us as an academic on the ground also remains the fact that in the academic institutions, even if I leave the faculty and staff, even from the students' point of view, do they really know as much about the SDGs as we would love them to know? Do they really know all the 17 SDGs? Do we really know all the 17 SDGs? So the point which was actually coming up in my mind that while the rankings show a very positive, encouraging scenario for Indian academic institutions, is there a need for us to do much more? And if we have to do, then what do we do? And I think it is somewhere here only that we wanted to structure this fireside chat today to explore with the three prolific professors from three different academic institutions to check out their views, to check out how they feel about this entire issue. So the first question, which I will actually throw up to the panel, and maybe Dr. Prasoom can take charge of that, and then Dr. Tanushree and Dr. Surendra can also possibly share their comments. That if we look at the academic institutions, and if we look at the concept of SDGs, then how are these SDG concepts getting embedded in the entire ecosystem of academics? If I talk about teaching, if I talk about research, if I talk about outreach, if I talk about stewardships, these are typically the four parameters which the Times Higher Education Impact Ranking has used, which we feel is very pertinent. And the other way, even if I don't look at these three parameters, and if I bring it down into very simple ways of curricular, co-curricular, and extracurricular, okay, and add research to that, how do we think that SDGs are actually embedded into all this? Are they really embedded into all this? And what more we need to do? So slightly broad based question or theme that I'm raising. Dr. Prasoom, it is all up to you to
Thank
set
you.
the ball
Thank you so
rolling. Yeah.
thank you so much, and thanks, Sustrat, for developing this platform to discuss such a pertinent issue. And mm, as an individual researcher, I can say that I was working on sustainability before coming to SDG. So uh, over more than 20 years, I can say the how this development has happened. And so that is a different aspect. But if
Right.
you look at the formalization in terms of ranking, and when THE started, listing the universities, and Indian universities, I must congratulate the HEIs of India. Those have in a very short span of time, they made their mark on the global map, you can say. And I think what I personally believe, this is bound to happen because of two reasons. One is culturally, sustainability is not a new concept for us. Individually, if you look at your family background and
Right.
the kind of values we have,
Right.
so sustainability is not new. So this is bound to happen. Secondly, the India's ecosystem is very much pro towards sustainability already, And I think that has helped the Indian HEIs to mark their presence on the map on sustainability. So it is just a start, lot more to do. And as you just given the conceptual framework of sustainability in terms of four building blocks: stewardship, research, teaching, and outreach. What my experience says that the institutions are, as of now, are more able to focus on stewardship and teaching, but outreach and research are still to be kept. And when this will happen, the presence will, which will be much more stronger than the which we have currently. So why I do say this, because if you look at the institutions, the stewardship, I mean, taking a lead in implementing the measures. So most of the institutions, they prefer to have renewable energy projects, solar power plants and all. And the reason is the government of India has offered a lot of, you know, subsidies and financial incentives. Apart from that, they have also, low burden on their daily expenses, because it reduces their cost or expenses, electricity expenses. I mean, people may not agree with this, but if you look at the working style and span in a day of the education institution, they typically work in a day hours, typically, 9 to 5 hours, teaching and staff most of the time. And solar is also available during those. So out of 8 hours, you can say at least 4 to 5 hours solar is available for them. So
Correct.
it works for them. So most of the institutions are actually have seen at least solar as a positive technology for them. Apart from that, rainwater harvesting, solid waste management, wastewater treatment, so many things which they have taken up just for optimizing their expenses, as well as to contribute to sustainability. Obviously, when you will adopt sustainability, it will help you to get benefits in various other different dimensions. Another thing is, which I have observed, that the universities are adopting the villages, nearby. And you would also agree that these institutions are trying to make a difference in the life of people, those who are living around the education institution. So these are kind of thing I can say that the stewardship which is playing a major role as of now currently. Then second is teaching. So over the period of time, the institutions have developed the curriculum like that, where they are trying to deliver skill sets to the students. But it is just a start. It is, I can say, it has it has a lot more to done, to do in the in developing the curriculum and aligning with the SDGs. But somehow it is there. And what I feel, I think Dr. Tanushri would talk more about it, that what should be the pedagogy. But I think the kind of ecosystem the institutions have developed in terms of stewardship, the projects that they have taken, uh, they can leverage. Say for example, I have an experience of one institution where I was invited for a talk in energy economics. So when I entered in the campus, I saw there is a renewable energy plant, solar power plant, to be more specific. Then my first question with the student, that have you ever seen this plant which is just nearby your classroom? So surprisingly, no student was knowing about the solar power plant, but they wanted to know what is energy economics. So I told them that I think you can start learning from your home, because there is a very pertinent example which has been demonstrated in front of you. Why don't you start from there, and it will give you an idea that how the economics is working around it. So what I mean to say, that since the institutions have already taken the measures, and I might be wrong, but what I feel with my personal experience in the category of stewardship, and those initiatives can be leveraged to develop curriculum, to deliver the curriculum, and so on and so on. Now,
Right.
apart from that, I'll take 2 minutes
Sure.
to, deliberate upon research and outreach. Uh, I think the institutions have started, publishing papers, although it was already there, but more aggressively, you can say the institutions are also going for funded research. And this is the area where uh, the professors need to be, build their capacities, that how should whatever they are doing, means research areas cannot be changed of the faculty members over the overnight, but their capacities can be built up, that how they can align their existing research areas with the SDGs. What will how will it help? It will help them to, first of all, this is the very cutting edge area, SDG. So when you write a paper in a cutting edge area, there is a chance of getting published in a prestigious journal with good impact factor, and so on. But apart from that, these faculty members are can also be a change maker for these students, and also for the funding agencies. And when you look at the funding opportunities from various national international agencies, they also have priority areas as one of the SDGs, and the faculty members are supposed, researchers are supposed to align their objectives with at least one objective with the SDGs. So what I mean to say, that there is a need to develop the capacity of the stakeholder as a whole, and the first stakeholder, I would say, the faculty member. And these faculty members can, if you can look at the linkages, it will help in teaching, it will help in outreach. How? Because they are the people, those who are delivering the program to the executives or to the other stakeholders. They are the people, those who are teaching to the students. They are the people, those who are writing papers. They are the people, those who are writing proposals for funding, and so on and so on. So, whatever be the form of research and teaching, they are the actually main players, you can say. So, I think the education institution should focus on building their capacities of their faculty members, so that they can align their research interests with the SDGs. So I think, just to summarize, it is just a start, and it is very welcoming, and I am happy to see that the Indian institutions have shown their mark already, and so since they have put in a lot of resources, if you see in terms of stewardship, it means they have made capital investment. It means they have, they have kept resources aside for only sustainability, which is a big, you can say, people can do only with big hearts. And I think the cultural values are also like that. So that is why the Indian institutions are coming up, but they can leverage these resources in a much bigger way without spending any extra amount. That's all.
Great. I think it's a great start to the discussion, Dr. Prasoom. And I'm happy to note that Dr. Prasoom is very positive about so far the way that we have moved. From here, I will branch into two areas. I'll have one question for Dr. Tanushree, and I'll have one question for Dr. Surendra, based on this points that Dr. Prasoom actually laid out. Oh, let me first articulate the questions, and then I'll first request Dr. Tanushree to respond, and then Dr. Surendra can take over. In terms of the teaching side, while Professor Prasoon very positively he stated his experience that how the academic institutions have integrated sustainability concepts in the academic curriculum. I'm not very sure that, except possibly a handful of academic institutions, possibly many of them are still struggling to do that. It is not that they don't want to do, but possibly they are struggling because it is not so simple as it might seem to, that how to integrate sustainability into academics. In fact, this is an area, if you look at, a lot of global management institutions are also talking and debating that how to get sustainability concepts at the core of business school educations. And here we are actually going beyond business schools to across all functional areas, all schools. So there I will request Dr. Tanushri possibly to highlight her thoughts. And let me also frame the question for Dr. Surendra, that when we are talking about stewardship, and there was this thought of Dr. Prasoom that many of the academic institutions has put in fair amount of funds, projects in investments in various sustainability projects. But possibly the students are not much aware of it. And since Dr. Surendra represent Modi University, where I've seen their green campus and such a lovely campus that you have. So the question obviously comes to you that while your management is doing so much in terms of biodiversity, in terms of a green campus, in terms of your life on the land, but how much of the knowledge, how much of the thinking is actually coming to the classroom in terms of teaching of sustainability concepts to the students' subjects, you know? So that's the second thing which I'll come to you. So Dr. Tanushri, I leave it to you essentially to share with us, okay, then what is your view on this area? And first of all, what is your view? What do you think that has been happening so far? And what is the way forward? What is
Sure.
the way forward? Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for having me here, first of all, Professor Sen Gupta, and thank you to Professor Dwivedi for showing a bright spotlight on the four pillars of SDGs with respect to education, teaching, research, outreach, and stewardship. So I actually see, a Herculean task in front of education system as a whole, which is to bridge the gap between sustainable development goals and personal accountability. That's what we are trying to achieve, right? So when we talk about teaching, or when we precisely talk about pedagogy, it pivots around learning outcomes, right? Uh, Learning outcomes are not very flashy, flamboyant statements which are there to ornate course manuals. They do much more, much beyond that. So we need to see where these learning outcomes are coming from and how aligned they are with the sustainable development goals in any higher education institute for that matter. I mean, some of us come from the space where sustainability has been given utmost importance. We are not only conscious about it, but committed to achieving the sustainable development goals. One has a sustainable development policy in place, right? So, where are these learning outcomes coming from? Generally, learning outcomes, of course, they do have a narrow focus on course, but then they look at the program outcomes as well. And the program outcomes look at the university level graduate attributes. So they are generally drawn from university level graduate attributes. So we need to see whether at that level do universities have sustainability consciousness or sustainability mindset or sustainability sensitivity as one of their graduate attributes or not. That is very important because if it is not there in the learning outcomes, it is not there in your sight. If it is not there in your sight, it is out of your mind. There is no way you can include it or embed it in your curriculum, right?
Right.
So that is number one. Secondly, when we talk about learning outcomes, it is not related only to discipline or it is not related only to the content that you would teach to your students, but it also is driven by the future lives of students. What would they be doing? going forward in their personal and professional lives. So, uh, when we talk about SDGs, what are we expecting? What kind of uh, behavior do we want our students to demonstrate or exhibit going forward, especially in the context of SDGs? So, we are not simply talking about building awareness or inculcating or sharing some practices. We are actually talking about changing perspectives, right? We are talking about actually bringing in behavioral change in our students, which will begin, first of all, with changing their perspective. Are they even aware of this? And what are we doing to bring in that kind of awareness? Right? Awareness is that, I mean, each and every behavior of yours is actually moving towards sustainability, either positively or adversely. There's a ripple effect of each and every behavior, the kind of butterfly effect that we talk about. Each behavior, a small little instance, my student, I mean, do they even know that they're consuming energy? What kind of energy are they consuming? What is the carbon footprint they're leaving? How inclusive they are in their behavior? um, how open they are, how sustainably they are living their life, their attitude to waste management, recycle products. So we are talking about these things because just awareness is not going to help us anywhere. We cannot move even an inch closer to achieving the SDGs just by becoming aware unless and until we internalize it and demonstrate it. And these are small little micro things which are needed, which more than anybody else, education institutions, higher educations can do. Number one, by having, those, that vision, that we actually are looking at behavioral change, not only just creating some awareness around 17 SDGs, where they have to just recall and remember and explain what these things are, but take them to the position where they're able to, apply these SDGs in their day-to-day life, audit their behavior, do self-audit, keep an SDG auditing journal with them, and perhaps it could be a credited thing also, because the moment it is credited, students take it seriously, otherwise they don't, right? So we actually are talking about where students go and analyze their behavior, evaluate their behavior, and then make informed decisions. How do we achieve that through pedagogy? Number one, yes, everything has to begin with awareness. There has to be some awareness. And awareness not only by just having some lectures around or having some talks around or webinars and seminars around it, but actually, involving them, right, with their partnership. I really like this example which Dr. Prasoom Dwivedi, mentioned about the institute he visited. So, see, stewardship, a lot is happening, but then how wonderful it would be if students are also involved in those initiatives when they get to know about that sewage treatment plant, or how their lifts are more energy efficient, or what is the how the university is maintaining the biodiversity, the greener area, this, that, the other. So creating awareness by involving students, the participatory method, that would be more impactful. Secondly, is in terms of initiatives and outreach. I mean, universities have started doing a lot. I can talk from the vantage point of my university, where lots of community health and hygiene camps are organized, and legal clinics are organized and arranged. Involve students there. Involvement is important. And then is creating student clubs around those things, student projects around it. So here again, there's one more thing. I always believe that we work in silos, though we talk a lot about interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity and now transdisciplinarity, but then we still are operating in a very siloed environment where people within one area might know what is happening with other faculty colleague, but what is happening with other area, what is happening in another school or college? I mean, there is still a lot of gap. How wonderful again it would be if people can come across areas together, collaboratively design some student projects which are actually authentic assignments, authentic projects, not just projects given for the sake of it and for correction and assessing and rewarding marks for the purpose of grading, but actually driven by the concept of bringing about the behavioral change. So then I would rather say those bringing in that interdisciplinarity then would be important, having those kind of projects. So maybe these are few things. And then, also having these using gamification and gamified learning. Students enjoy this, right? Having simulation built around any of the SDG areas, that would be fantastic. Asking students to design simulation around it, it would be a little easier, giving them opportunity, whatever student fest they are doing. I mean, they can be encouraged to have a couple of events pivoted around SDGs, right? And then there is one test which is known as sustainability literacy test, encouraging students to take it, and also faculty can do it. But then to reach that stage, we need to begin with faculty, right? We cannot touch our nose and expect students to touch their chin. If we want them to touch their nose, we have to touch our nose as well. So with this, I would hand it over back to you, Professor Sengupta. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tanushree. In fact, you raised certain very valid points, and that actually means we have to catch the students right from the school, because a lot of what you mentioned is actually a question of a lifestyle. It's a question of
Correct.
a mindset, and those groomings has to happen at the school level, So that's a very big challenge that you have mentioned. But yes, I think the point is well taken, that in terms of integrating everything, how much we are doing, possibly a lot more needs to be done. And especially even for our professors, even for our faculty members, when we are talking about teaching of students across schools, like maybe I am a science prof and I understand environment and biodiversity, but when I go to the class of business school students and making them understand the relevance of environment in business,
Yeah.
I first need to understand that I have to work on the mindset, because they are focused on expecting marketing, finance, HR, supply chain to be taught or spoken about in the classroom. But when we are talking about climate environment, until of course somebody who is really understanding the issues of effect of climate and biodiversity on business, but there are many business school students who are still not reached that level to make it relevant for them. The responsibility is actually on me, and saying that I'm just not a professor of science or in environment, but I have to understand how to make my learning, my teaching much more relevant to my class. So yeah, I think a lot more initiative needs to be taken by the faculty community. Thank you. We'll come back to you. Dr. Surendra. Yeah, so in terms of the question of stewardship and what is happening in the classroom, what's your thought? Surendra, you are on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, you are audible now. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much for having me here and with this esteemed panel. And before I answer your question, I want to make a brief point. See, if we ask various academicians as to what is that single most important thing which must be taught to all the students irrespective of their discipline and area of specialization, I'm sure we will come up with quite a long list. and academicians coming from different educational backgrounds will have their own set of subjects which they would feel are must for all the students to learn. But out of all those, UGC has picked up just one, and that is environment studies. So in 2003, UGC had made it mandatory to teach environment studies at the undergraduate level, of course, as per the directives of the Honorable Supreme Court of India. But that is there irrespective of whether you are studying engineering or science or commerce or whatever be the subject. But the problem with this approach so far has been that, yes, environmental studies is being taught, but when a business student studies that, he feels that it is being forced upon him or her, and he's least bothered about this, right? It is because of some mandate. So whether we have formulated the policy, but in spirit we have not been able to implement that, and that is where the gap is. So the one solution to that could be, we can co-educate, I mean co-teach the subject by various teachers coming from different backgrounds, and they can bring in the perspectives of maybe the science as well as the commerce as well as the engineering aspect to it. Or maybe we can simply outsource it to some agency which can do this job in a better way. Because what is more important is that instead of just imparting this knowledge and skills, equally important is to develop that attitude and inculcate that that spirit, that yes, why it is important and why is it that the entire globe is after all these SDGs, and how are they going to help me in my whatever career path I am going to pursue. So that thing somewhere I feel is missing, and that is where this co-teaching or maybe this collaborative teaching or maybe outsourcing of this can help. Also, like in some of the universities, what they are doing outside the country are that they are developing certain projects with the community around them, the society which they are part of, the local community, maybe the regional community, and they are trying to address their problems and coming up with the solutions and discussion with them. And that could also be the part of the research which can be thrown open to the entire world to see and implement in wherever it can be applied. So that is something which I feel there is a huge gap. So that's it, sir. So you're on.
Yeah. I mean, I actually wanted you to also talk about the integration of this, in terms of the stewardship initiatives, okay, and in the classroom. Like, I'm specifically coming to your campus because I've seen your campus, such a lovely green campus. So my question was that while your horticulturist team are doing a fantastic job in creating a great campus, are the faculty or the students really understanding or picking up, understanding why it is happening? Okay. Rather than saying that creating a green campus possibly adds to the cost, and which is actually going to add to my tuition fees, and then saying, why do I need that greenery? Okay. But the question is that how much of that understanding is actually coming to the classroom through the various teaching that you are having? Do you see that integration happening slowly, or what is your take on that?
As this this Times Higher Education, they define stewardship into two aspects. One is physical resources and second is human resources.
Okay.
So how as an university we mobilize our physical resources, and whether we are having sustainable renewable resources, we have sustainable transportation, that all is about our physical resources. But how do you behave with your human resources, and how do you motivate them or encourage them or involve them in this entire process is what the second aspect of this stewardship is. And that is where you're right that there is a gap, that and that will also happen only when we built in this sustainability aspect in each of the discipline and each of the various subjects curriculum. You need not have a separate course on sustainability development or sustainability management. You need to imbibe this in multiple courses so that this is ingrained, and then only we can appreciate the things around us. Why is it happening? Why do we need to care for this biodiversity? Now that brings me to another point, that while we are doing so much in terms of, let us say, biodiversity, this climate change, even for example ours being female only university, so we are also doing a great job on gender diversity. But when it comes to getting a recognition for that, we are lost. We do not even know what we are already doing. So just a little bit of guidance and little bit of encouragement and bringing all this together can not only help us get the recognition in the form of this THE rankings, but also can imbibe, and first it has to be among the faculty members, then only they can percolate it downwards among the students. So yes, there is certainly a gap, and that needs to be bridged.
Which means that actually takes us to the bigger issue which Dr. Tanushree had been raising, that until at our program outcome level, we talk about one of the outcomes being to sensitize and to really pick up the knowledge and understanding of sustainability and SDGs, it will not really percolate down to our program level and to our course level, where we talk about, that how do we integrate this? Are we talking about different subjects, or how we are going to map all the SDGs with our subjects and see which is actually getting reflected where. And I'm sure many of the institutions who have actually got into the ranking must have done that exercise. But I think there is a lot more needs to be done. There are so many higher education institutions who are there, possibly who need to be guided properly. Because I think the intention is there, but people are always struggling to say that how do I make it all happen? I think that is some of the challenge. Dr. Surendra, I just wanted to ask you another question, that since I know that you are involved quite a bit in terms of this rating, rankings, etc., etc.
Yes,
In terms of capturing of this SDGs in the academic institutions, higher education institutions, and the rankings, can you share some more insight into what was some of your study and of observation, possibly from the Times Impact Ranking or the NIRF and so many other things that you were doing? If you can throw some light on that.
Okay. So, like as I said, I'm the nodal officer of the NIRF for the university. So there also there are multiple things. For example, gender diversity is one of the aspects. The socially challenged and economically challenged students, what are we doing for them? That is also there. For disabled students, what we are doing. So there are multiple aspects which are already inbuilt into NIRF, but not so obvious, and therefore many times get ignored because we have not named them or labeled them as SDGs. So, and that is there even the NAC or even all kind of accreditation, but more particularly in case of this Times ranking of impact ranking. In fact, the Times have already been doing that universal university ranking. But this impact ranking in particular has been with respect to the sustainable development goals, and the methodology which they built upon is based upon the individual sustainable development goals. So universities basically receive a score and a rank for the activities they are doing with respect to each of these SDGs for which they submit the data. So the participation in this overall ranking require universities to submit data to at least 4 SDGs, and one of which must be SDG 17, that is partnership for the goals.
Okay.
Other than that, universities have to submit for at least 3 more SDGs. Of course, university can submit the data for all the 17 SDGs, but for the final score, only 4 SDGs will be considered. One, of course, if is the SDG 17, which is mandatory, and the 3 other SDGs out of the remaining 16, where that particular university scored the maximum. So what this basically means is that a university is not expected to excel in all the 17 SDGs, Rather, they are expected to find out their niche area and make a significant contribution in those particular SDGs only. So the overall score is generated from the score of these SDG 17, which has a weighted of 22% in the overall score, plus the 3 strongest of the other SDGs for which the data has been provided with a weightage of 26% each. And then the overall ranking is given based on the average of the last 2 years total scores. So that is how they do it. And in that, they have these 4 parameters or areas, the first of which is the research. And unlike this normal THE universal ranking, where overall research is considered, in case of impact ranking, only the research related to that particular SDG is considered. And for that, they identify the relevant publications based on certain keywords.
Okay.
So even if you do some research in that area, but have not used that particular defined keywords, you will not get captured in that. So one has to be very careful with that, and that the relevant keywords are used. And for that, maybe they can take help of some external agency, or they have to do some in-depth study. Maybe an organization like Sustat Advisory can help them. And the second area is about the stewardship. So wherein, because as I said, universities are custodians of not only the physical resources, but also of human resources, and how they behave and interact with them, that also is getting captured in that. Third, of course, is the outreach, wherein how universities deal with their local, regional, national, and international communities. And the fourth is this teaching, which obviously is a critical aspect. And to what extent the university is producing the skilled practitioners to deliver on these SDGs, and their alumni, how they are contributing in the SDGs.
Right.
And
Thank you.
And also in each of these parameters, they take multiple indicators, and each indicator has got 3 points to be scored. So 1 point is for your affirmative confirmation declaration by the university itself. Okay. Second point is given if the university is able to provide some conclusive evidence.
Okay.
And the third point is awarded if the evidence is available in the public domain. That means it can be challenged and confronted by anybody in the public or any of the stakeholders.
Okay.
So that's how they do it.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Dr. Surendra, for really taking us through that. It was good to really get into the nuts and bolts and really understand the process. Taking off from you, I will come back again to Dr. Prasoom and Dr. Tanushree. The concept of partnership. You mentioned quite a bit about the partnerships. If we go a little bit more into the details, and Dr. Tanushree, maybe you can respond to that first, and Dr. Prasoom. One of the key stakeholders, I think, becomes really the corporate sector. Those who are the corporate world, those who are actually looking at fresh talent from these higher education institutions, okay, and where we are talking about the industry, academia collaboration, the partnerships. Do you think that there is sufficient demand from the corporate world from the academic institutions to have talent who are actually trained and aware and knowledgeable about sustainability and ESG concepts? Because even the corporates today are actually having a very challenging time in terms of implementing ESG and sustainability goals. So if that work has to be carried forward, you need a pool of trained manpower, trained talent pool. Do you think that there is enough traction from the industry to the corporates that we want students not only who are good in a functional field of your specializations, whether it is technology or science or architecture or in the field of management, since all three of you are business school profs, that whether in marketing, finance, HR, but also to be aware and having good enough knowledge in terms of implementation, in terms of knowledge, how sustainability is important for marketing guys, how ESG and sustainability are important for finance guys, how ESG sustainability are important for other functional areas like HR, supply chain. Is that kind of a demand actually coming in? Because since you are dealing with so many business school students, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to pitch in a little bit in between because over a period of time,
Yeah.
now in sustainability, there is a transition which has taken place from awareness to skill. So sustainability has become a skill now, and I think that this is how I'll be able to
Correct.
answer your question.
Correct.
In 2021, Government of India, SEBI made ESG compliance for top 1,000 companies listed in the share market.
Right.
And that's how the demand is driving from the industry side. Now, the challenge with the industry is that they need to enter into an area where their existing workforce is not trained. They need to implement those projects. So they are looking for a fresh talent having this skill set. That is why there is a demand. Secondly, they also want to train their existing workforce, and this is evident if you look at now the business verticals of big four consultancies. They are having sustainability at a separate vertical with them, and this shows that what is the importance of sustainability as a skill. So what I mean to say that now the time is over for creating and developing awareness. No, now the time is to give skill sets to this. So every student, if he or she is specializing in finance, he or she should know how sustainable finance can be raised. What are those avenues? What are those benefits? How that sustainable finance can work? How they can fetch it? Same as with the other specialized. If you talk about the business school, so now the transition has taken place, and the I think the universities have real. And one more indicator, I think Dr. Suren would agree that there is one parameter in NIRF ranking also that is related to SDG. And if you look at the weightages, it is the top fourth factor
Correct.
where most of the universities are not able to, claim that as of now. But that is a potential area where the universities can pitch in. It will help them to improve their innovation also, because it will give a lot of opportunities for business ideas, entrepreneurs, incubations, and so on and so on. And then these are, I'm just superficially I'm talking about, but when you need to understand what is the nature of sustainability. When you want to deliver this kind of course, you have to understand it's not a foundation course, it's a multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary course. So whenever you are designing a course, then you should know that what are the specific area. I think Dr. Tanushi also talked about that, that specializations needs to be understand, and then those people need to, that's how the partnership would come in. And that's how I think the Dr. Suren talked about co-teaching concept, that would also come in, be it health, be it education, be it business, be it engineering, be it any area. Whenever you will try to deal with the sustainability, you have to appreciate the multidisciplinarity aspect of it.
Right.
Say, for example, in my case, if I am an energy economist, and if I am teaching energy economics to the economics students,
Correct.
so energy economics cannot be taught without technology, and economics students don't know the technology. And if you are teaching them economics, energy economics, how will they understand? So it is very important that how will you embed the technology part, which is the basic requisite to teach that course. Only then the energy economics can be taught. This is just an example. So
Right.
there can be number. So how this module can be developed, how those learning outcomes, whatever, the framework which Dr. Tanushi just talked about. Uh, that can be done because I have done already. I have developed those kind of courses and delivered successfully for more than
Right,
10 years. And there was a demand also in the market.
right,
That's all.
right. Dr. Tanushree, any thoughts?
Right. So, see, sustainability as a word is not a new word in corporate. It's been there for ages now, right? And since I come, from HR human resources area, um, I mean, many years ago, we saw the initiation around creating sustainable mindset culture in the organization. So it's there for long. And whether industry itself is doing enough to be sustainable or not is one question. Secondly, do they talk about it? Yes. If I go back and see how many guest lectures were anchored to sustainability, not only in one particular discipline, but multiple disciplines, there were many. There were many. But what is happening at the ground, one really does not know, right? I think there is still a long way to go. Um, it could be, as of now, I may say that something which is good to have, but not mandatory to have as of now. I mean, HR people or industry or corporate might want to have people who have sustainability mindset or who demonstrate certain sustainability linked behavior. But then it's like good to have. But whether it is a cutoff that if you don't score this much on sustainable literacy test, we would not take you on board. I think that is not yet happening. Right. We still have to see, I mean, some progressive organizations here and there might be doing it, but then that is not a general practice, right? And I do agree. See, again, this is what is coming out when we talk about sustainable development goals (SDG). We actually go back to just one or two courses on sustainability. The idea is not that. The idea is to look through the lens of sustainability, whether it is HR or finance or supply chain or anything for that matter. So when I teach HR, right, I mean, am I able to pinpoint which SDGs am I looking at? I mean, when I talk about DEI, right, I'm talking about reduce inequality. If I talk about gendered leadership, it's related to SDG 5. So I mean, that is how it has to be. And not only that, not just giving only lectures around that or linking it, or finding or sourcing good case studies to explain that, but actually involving students in doing that. For example, if my college claims that we have created a lot of employment opportunities for people around in the nearby villages, and there are a lot of people, so I want my students to see how many of them are women. Fine, if we are talking about gender equality, so involving them, seeing them, that this is how gender equality can be maintained at this particular level, right? Is my university taking any affirmative action? What is that? So for that, I mean, I need to be aware of it first myself, and it needs to go beyond this case studies, but actually looking for real life opportunity embeddedness. Right. And going back to the main question which you asked about competency, whether industry is specifically looking for new joiners with this particular skill set or not, I would like to maintain that. But then if you look at the competency mapping or competency framework of many organizations, you would see it is being reflected here and there. But again, it's not enough. We are far away from reaching there. There is still a long way to go. It's building up, but I think the onus lies on university again, not only to guide students, but guide corporates as well. And that's what partnership is all about.
Right.
That's that.
That's great. That's
Thank
great.
you.
So what you were saying that the academic institutions need to be proactive and reach out to the corporates and industry and make them more aware and make them more action driven when it comes
Absolutely.
to the SDGs,
Absolutely.
rather than expecting them to do the same thing for the higher education institutions.
I mean, university can become that fulcrum, that
Correct.
pivot around which all the stakeholders can pivot
Correct.
around.
Correct. And possibly
And that's
that is
what the
why,
basic
yeah,
purpose of education is.
absolutely,
Influencing
absolutely.
everything, right from
Correct.
governance to
Correct.
not only limited to knowledge creation,
Correct.
preservation, and
Correct.
dissemination,
Correct.
but doing a lot more. And
Absolutely.
here
Correct.
it is basically to again, bridge the gap between personal well-being and planetary well-being.
Right. And in
Okay,
fact, that is really where the theme was of today, that how the in universities actually need to play that role, to work with all the stakeholders. It is not just actually a question of the students or faculty, but it's a question of all the stakeholders, because it is only when all the stakeholders are aligned or working on a single directive, the issue of this achieving the SDGs really come up, and in that way, yes, I think, I mean, there's a big role in terms of managing all the stakeholders, inspiring, driving them toward the direction. And for academic institutions to do that, possibly it is the faculty community who has to play a very big role, not only in terms of teaching, in terms of research, in terms of outreach, and really take them forward. Right. I think it was a great discussion, and thanks to all three of you for being part of the panel. And I'm sure that there will be more opportunities for us on talking on this particular line. In fact, Sastrat is already working on a kind of a framework which we want to take forward to the higher education institutions to ensure that how we can actually help them, while there are 100 plus who are actually on track or doing very well, but our feel is that there are many more possibly who need the support, who need the guidance, to integrate all together. Because I think the crux remains in that while there are solo efforts happening in the various pillars, but how to integrate everything together, I think that is where the crux will lie in terms of the real success, to see the real outcomes. Thank you so much for all of you for joining this particular program today. And with that, I request Dr. Shavita to finally formally thank all your speakers and to close the